it's all kind of up in the air right now still.
So the American Conference made their decision. American Athletic Conference made their decision official today. We've kind of heard about it for a few weeks, but also the last couple of days in particular. Wren Baker, athletic director at the University of North Texas in Denton, joins us on Sic 'Em 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Wren, what does this mean for North Texas today?
Well, it's a great opportunity for us to continue our growth and trajectory, not only athletically, but also academically. As you guys know, UNT is one of the fastest growing universities in the country, and we currently sit at 42,000 students. And we've had a lot of success the last few years in our athletic program. So this will give us a bigger brand presence, certainly more exposure with the TV package the American has, and allow us to continue to grow and flourish. So we're very, very excited about the opportunity.
Wren, we're just talking about the kind of the domino effect of all of this, and how, at least in my opinion, this seems to be kind of a pushback against some of the elitism that we see in college athletics, where there was a club and no one else could be in it. Now there's things like the 12-team playoff in college football that's on the table, and teams are expanding. Do you see this as a true attempt to make college athletics grow, as opposed to let's make sure it grows, but just for the ones that everybody's heard of and knows about?
Well, I certainly hope that it is. I mean, if you ask me, the most special championship event in all of college athletics is the NCAA basketball tournament. And it's because of those stories like the one we participated in last year, with a chance to go into Indianapolis with Coach McCaslin leading our basketball program, a proud Baylor alum, and beating Purdue, and the awareness that gave our university, here in the Metroplex, was huge for us. But I think everybody loves rooting for the schools that are having to fight their way up. Maybe they don't have the most resources or tradition or those things, and so. The more opportunities that we can give young people, the more access that we can give young people to have an elite championship experience, that should be what college athletics is about. And, I know that money drives a lot of decisions, but at the end of the day, what should be the most important is giving young people opportunities.
Wren, I think everybody was geared up for this, football season and everything kind of getting back to quote-unquote normal. And then there was that week after Big 12 Media Days where the bomb was dropped at a College Station on Oklahoma and Texas leaving, and subsequently there's been shockwaves, and that's part of why we're talking to you today. So I was just curious, from your standpoint, where were you when you first heard the news about Texas and OU, and did you sense at the time the magnification the effect that would have across college football here over the last few months?
Well, I had just dating back a few months, with everything we went through with COVID and all of that, and the financial ramifications, and trying to balance budgets and trying to play games safely. It had been a long time since I'd had any kind of a break, and so. I've got a wife and then two young daughters, 10 and 7, and my wife had been really pressing me, and they had been really pressing me to get them away for a few days. So in my infinite wisdom, I looked at the calendar and said, hey, man, the last week of July looks like a great time to get away. There'll be nothing going on. And so I know exactly where I was. I was in Seaside, Florida, and I spent most of that week on the phone. My president actually picked that week to take vacation too. He was on a lake in Arkansas, and so I'm sure both of us made our spouses pretty unhappy with the amount of time we were on the phone trying to unpack everything. But I didn't know exactly how the dominoes would fall, but I knew that this would have a trickle down effect. It always has when there's been major shifts in college athletics. And so, we're very fortunate that that ended up giving us an opportunity that we feel like will be very beneficial for the university. And we're also, as somebody who grew up in Oklahoma and worked at Oklahoma State, and Mac Rhodes is a very dear friend and mentor. I'm also excited to see the Big 12 get some great programs to bring in. I think that league will stabilize. Those programs will be elevated by being in the conference. And, I think a lot of us were a little worried about the Big 12 there for a little bit. And so I'm really relieved to see them have some stability and be set for the future.
Has there been discussion with the American Athletic Conference that the Big 12 may not be done? And you probably have seen or heard, possibly, even we have ourselves discussed it, that there might be other teams on their radar. Has that been discussed as you guys are expanding into that conference?
Well, as we've went into the conference, we have not had discussions with our colleagues in the conference about that yet. But certainly I've had discussions with other people. And, I think at the end of the day, the Big 12's possible expansion will probably hinge on does it make sense from a TV perspective? And, do any of the other leagues make any moves or do anything any different? But, I think if you're going to be a leader in college athletics, you have to be prepared that the only thing that remains the same is everything changes. And so, I think we'll be going in with our eyes wide open, but our focus, since I've been here in 2016, realignment and conference affiliation comes up a lot. And I always have said consistently the same thing. We can't control if there's movement, if there's opportunities, if we get invited. All we can control is to be the best that we can be. And if we're the best that we can be at North Texas, that's good for our institution. That's good for the conference that we're in. And that will afford us those opportunities. And so that's been our approach. And I think that's the way we'll have to approach it in the future. And, you just have to be ready that things could shift or change.
Obviously, the last 2 years in college athletics has been a lot of if emergency, break glass kind of thinking with COVID. And then now you've got conference realignment. Do you have to maybe as athletic departments now always kind of be on the lookout for things you didn't think that you would have to do that day?
Well, my deputy AD is Jared Mosley, who you guys may know. Jared, he was over the Hall of Fame there in Waco and has done a great job for us, former AD at Abilene Christian. But I've told him a couple of times, it seems like it's been 2 years since I did any part of this job that I enjoy, which is going and being around the kids and coaches. All we've done is manage seismic shifts and crisis for some time here. But, I think that's what college athletics is right now. We're not going through significant change and paradigm shifts, with the Constitution rewrite, with the Supreme Court case decision, with name, image, and likeness. There is a monumental shift in college athletics, and we're all going to have to work through it and get through it together. And I would imagine that's still going to be a 2 to 3 year process as we figure out what college athletics is going to look like in the future. But, all jokes aside, my family, I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma. My dad, my uncle, my grandfather all worked at a paper mill there in the town I grew up. And so I worked there in the summers to help pay my way through college. And I still say, even though some of these days have been very stressful, the worst day that I ever had in college athletics was better than my best day working in the paper mill. So we're blessed to be around young people and get a chance to see them grow, get a chance to see them get degrees and life-changing experiences and learn from disappointments and setbacks and learn from success, so I think we're going to have to really focus in on what our mission is and what our calling is over the next 2 to 3 years, because there's going to be some more stressful times as we try and figure out what the future looks like.
Taylor Bryan is one of the best in the business. Taylor Young, former Baylor linebacker. Jared Mosley, who was here, as you mentioned, the Hall of Fame. Grant McCaslin, Jim Gush. Is the one you regret, though, Phil Bennett? Is that the one? Because I'm just kidding. We love Phil Bennett. He used to do a weekly show with us. But these are all part of the North Texas Athletic Department right now. How cool is that combination?
It's awesome. And I tell you what, Coach Bennett has been just really great to have around. Not only is he a great football coach, but just a tremendous person. And so he's one of those people you stop by his office and you're going to talk for 15, 20 minutes. And he's a great storyteller and a great conversationalist. And we've had a lot of conversations about Texas and football and MAC. And he knows, Phil knows everybody. He's been around so long. And we're glad to have those guys. Taylor's been a great addition. Obviously, Grant McCaslin has been tremendous, and so I think those connections that we have with former Baylor alums and people that worked at Baylor have been very positive for us. So we'll just try and continue to raid people from Mac Rhodes. I don't mind to take people from him sometimes, aggravate him a little bit.
Well, Wren, we were just going to tell you. I mean, we were being nice about it there, but stop taking all our friends, man.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
yeah, that's some good. Every one of those guys are great people.
Yeah, I mean, Mac, I figure he'll call me pretty soon and remind me that there are people that work in college athletics that aren't at Baylor. So, he doesn't hesitate to let me know when I'm stepping out of line.
Wren, what was the response, or what has been the response? I know it's only been a few hours here, but what have you been able to tell as best you can from the North Texas fan base about this move?
They're very excited. I think this is really this is the best conference and the best, when you talk about the American, I mean, not only will financially it be a benefit for us, but the bigger thing, as I mentioned, is exposure. We've never had an opportunity to have, be in a league that has, I think the American has over 100 games a year between football and basketball on linear TV, whether that's one of the ESPN networks or ABC. And so, in Conference USA, no fault really of our leadership or anything, but our games have kind of been hard to find. Our rights are split up a variety of ways. And so I think our fans very excited. They were convinced. I think some of them weren't convinced it was going to happen. I mean, even in the last 2 or 3 days, I had lots of emails. Are you sure SMU's not going to block us? And all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't respond to those. But we've had a lot of conversations with the league, of course, leading up to this, and a lot of conversations. SMU has been great. And even though that's an intense rivalry between our fans and the institutions, we got a lot of respect for President Turner and Rick Hart, my colleague there. And so we're excited to be, in a league with SMU, but also to be in a league where we bring two of our Texas sister institutions in Conference USA in with us. So that gives us some natural rivalries and some easy trips for fans to make. And then Tulsa is an easy trip for us, and Wichita State will be a great trip, a great opponent and trip for us in sports other than football. I know Coach McCaslin's excited to be able to play Wichita State. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us. I'll get a chance to go back to Memphis occasionally. Anywhere I've ever been, if you guys meet me, you'll see pretty quickly I have a strong commitment to eating. And so I was in the American. I get to go to all these places where I already have my favorite restaurant picked out. So it's great all the way around, and I know our fans are really excited.
If you don't mind, and I'm not trying to get you to put words in your mouth, but Memphis's name has been out there as a possible school that could move in to another Power 5 conference or to a Power 5 conference. In fact, the Big 12. You were there. How much would that mean to that fan base if that happens?
Well, I would rank them second behind North Texas.
Okay.
In terms of who you guys should be looking at.
Okay.
I'd say that. Listen. Memphis is an awesome place. People don't realize, for the size of its market, Memphis has more full-time radio stations devoted to sports talk radio than any other city in the country. It is a sports-loving city, and it's a city that loves the Tigers. It's really one of those places where the majority of our donors and season ticket holders and alums, I don't even think are necessarily graduates. It's just the university means a lot to the city and represents a lot to the city. So I think if they were given the opportunity at some point, it would take a program with a rich history and tradition and excite and energize it even more. And I loved my time in Memphis. I mentioned I was from a small town, Oklahoma. So was my wife, and we had never lived in a city with more than 20,000 people before we moved to Memphis, and we loved it. We fell in love with it, and we still try to go back and visit occasionally. And so what a great program and a special tradition. That basketball program, I don't think there's any more passionate basketball fans anywhere in the country than there is in Memphis.
One more thing. You mentioned Mac, and he had mentioned you, I think, one of the last couple of times when he's on with us almost weekly. You were there at Missouri with him. He left for Baylor. You were then interim, and then it went to North Texas. It was not a it was a difficult time at Missouri as well. What did you learn working under Mack Rhoades and with and for him as well?
Well, Mack is one of my dearest friends. He's like a brother to me, although I tell him he's like a father to me, to just give him some jokes about his age. But he and I went through, that period in Missouri at no fault of Mack's was one of the most tumultuous, in athletics history there and probably anywhere. And Mack did a tremendous job of keeping everybody together, of leading us through it, of communicating to all the constituents during that time. And it was a really difficult time. And, I know Mack, it wasn't an easy decision for him to leave, because I think he wanted to kind of continue to see them through that time. But he and his family loved Texas, and I think he felt, a calling as a man of faith and as a leader to come to Baylor. And what a remarkable job he's done leading Baylor back to national prominence, after the things that happened there. And so I think Mack's one of, if not the best athletic director in the country, and Baylor's lucky to have him. And I'm fortunate to not only consider him a mentor, but a very, very, very dear friend.
Wren, it's a big day. It's interesting because you have what we've mentioned with possibly SMU, and where now North Texas is. And as you mentioned, other schools in Houston now, a part of the Big 12, and all this. And back in late July, we didn't know how it was going to end up. There's still going to be more dominoes. We appreciate you being a part of the show and giving us your perspective from Denton and also the University of North Texas. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate being on. And listen, I haven't been on before, but I know both of you by name, because Grant talks about you. My friend Kevin Gall talks about you. Mack, Jeremiah Dickey. We have all these common friends. And so Taylor as well. I know he went to his office to listen. He wanted to make sure I wasn't late getting on the call. So we're glad to be on, and I'm glad to talk to you. And hopefully we'll get a chance to play more games against each other. I know Scott and Grant don't want to play each other because they're like family, but maybe we can twist their arms and get them to do that sometime. But we definitely have a lot of respect for Baylor, the people there, and the success they've had, and I appreciate you guys having me on. By
the way, has Taylor made anything for you and brought it to the office in that brand new Traeger that he bought? Do you know about that?
Yeah, he and Mosley talk about these Traeger grills all the time. I'm wondering how much stock they may own in them. No, he has not made anything for me. So, both of them take great pride in their smoking ability and their food preparation, and I take great pride in being able to go to my Uber Eats app and have it delivered.
Well, that's interesting.
So we're on different spectrums there. I'm not trying to spend all day Saturday smoking meat. I want to be in the pool having a good time and just have it all delivered.
Absolutely. Hey, Wren, thank you, man. Appreciate everything in the time you gave us today. Good luck going forward.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's Wren Baker, the Director of Athletics at the University of North Texas. They're a part of that group that added to the American Athletic Conference effective 2023, which is kind of really a timeline in that June-July timeline where really so many things might become like formed, from what the Big 12 will look like to what the SEC might look like to what other conferences, including the American Athletic Conference, might look like. And there's still more to come as well. All right, when we come back, more about today's news with the American Athletic Conference, but also how many unbeaten teams